I'm joined now by Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and a Fox News contributor. Speaker, thanks for joining us this morning.
Glad to be with you.
So let's get to that first. The president has taken to Twitter on this, and he has called all of this a total scam as this controversy continues. Is that something you agree with?
Oh, I think in terms of the whole question of the Trump administration, it's an absurd story, but I think it raises two other questions. One is, was the Obama White House deliberately leaking, which would be a felony? Who was doing it? I mean, these are crimes. And I think that's a key part of this. And the other is, I think we should know what the Russians have been up to, but frankly, that involves the Podesta brothers, one of whom is a registered agent for a Russian bank. It involves all the different things that Peter Schweitzer wrote about in his book on Clinton Cash. And it's ironic that all of the real evidence of real money and real influence buying by the Russians relates to Democrats. There's no evidence that anybody was particularly being purchased on the Republican side, yet the committees, for reasons beyond my understanding, are narrowly defining what this investigation is about. It should be about the degree to which the U.S. is penetrated by efforts to corrupt our society and to purchase influence.
Yeah, and you've heard that time and time again during those White House press briefings this week from Sean Spicer. He keeps saying that the media is obsessed with the process and not the substance here. That continues to be the White House narrative. But I want to show you exactly what he wrote in this tweet, the president. He said, "It is the same fake news media that said there is, quote, no path to victory for Trump. That is now pushing the phony Russia story, a total scam." Why do you think that the media is in such a frenzy over this?
Oh, no, I don't think they're actually in a frenzy over this. I think they're in a frenzy. And this is the latest manifestation of that frenzy. It's a little bit like the Time correspondent who couldn't find Martin Luther King's statue because apparently a Secret Service agent was standing in front of it, and so promptly, without checking with anybody, sent out a note that Trump had taken Martin Luther King's statue or bust out of the Oval Office, which was repeated by 3,000 different sources, according to Kellyanne Conway. I think what you have is a left-wing media, starting with the Times, New York Times, and Washington Post, and the big networks. They are so far to the left. They are in a frenzy over Trump having won. This is just the latest manifestation. But you're going to see them stay this way, I think, all the way through. They are so frightened that their world is going to be taken apart, which it is. They're watching deregulation. They're watching a conservative Supreme Court justice. They're watching a president who's not afraid to take them on. And I think it just increases the panic and the frenzy of the news media.
Speaker, the intelligence community has concluded that Russia did indeed meddle in the 2016 election. The discrepancy here and the conspiracy theories that are out there and the speculation out there from the mainstream media, you'll see, is that Donald Trump was involved in that and his campaign was involved in that and colluded with them somehow on the election. There's absolutely no proof of that, we know. But is it reasonable to say at this point, Speaker, that there are a lot of outstanding questions surrounding this and these investigations are certainly needed?
Look, the Russians believe in a model that we're going to have to figure out how to deal with called hybrid warfare. And that model includes intelligence operations, it includes information operations, it includes bribing people. It's a whole range of things. They're doing it right now in Ukraine. They've done it in some of the Baltic states. And they do it here and they do it in Europe. And we're going to have to figure out how to do it. That's why I said I'd feel much better if the intelligence committees took a deep breath, stood back and said, we're going to look at everything involving Russian efforts, and there are other countries that do this, but Russia is the biggest one, to subvert American society. And you know, President Obama himself said last year, of course they're doing it. They always try to do it. They did it back in the Soviet days, and he shrugged it off. So there's no question the Russians have information operations. They have spending large amounts of money. They have a variety of things going on, none of which particularly related to Donald Trump, and frankly, in the past may have helped Democrats far more than Republicans. But we, the American people, deserve to have the Congress get to the bottom across the whole issue of efforts by Russia to influence and undermine American life.
Do you think that an independent investigation is needed, or should the Senate take the lead on this?
You know, former Attorney General McCasey did a great job the other day on another network when they kept talking about an independent counsel. He said, show me the crime. I mean, there is no crime here. I don't know what the crime would be. And there's zero question about any kind of crime by the Trump people. I think that the more you look at this, the more you realize this is hysteria in the news media. By the way, deliberately ignoring Director of National Intelligence Clapper when he says there was no collusion, deliberately ignoring James Comey when he says there was no collusion. I mean, we've had pretty definitive statements that nobody in the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians.
Let's talk about Michael Flynn. This is Trump's former national security advisor. He was fired from the administration for not disclosing conversations with at least one Russian official. He is now asking for immunity in exchange for testifying on these Russian probes. President Trump backed his request this week, saying he should ask for immunity. This is a witch hunt. Do you agree with that? Absolutely.
Look, I watched an independent counsel destroy the reputation of Scooter Libby when he was Dick Cheney's chief of staff. The independent counsel knew that the person he was looking for was, in fact, in the State Department, knew exactly who it was, told the person to keep their mouth shut, and went after Scooter in an effort to intimidate him into destroying Cheney. In the process, that independent counsel locked up a New York Times reporter for 85 days to force her to give what she has said in a book since then was false testimony. Now, I would say that my advice as a non-lawyer to somebody like Flynn or anybody in the Trump White House is if you don't get a grant of immunity, don't say a word. Plead the fifth on every single thing, because you're going to run the risk that the House committee, the Senate committee, the FBI are all going to look at your testimony. Then they're going to look at other people's testimony. Then they could come back, not because you did anything wrong, but because you either misremembered something, which they'll characterize as perjury, you failed to remember a certain document, which they'll characterize as obstruction of justice. This is not a game. People's lives have been destroyed by these kind of antics, and I think in his own self-interest that General Flynn, who has served this country well, has won 4 bronze medals in combat, for Pete's sake. You know, he's being attacked by people who don't have a clue what it's like to defend America. And I think he should absolutely demand that he get immunity before he say a word.
And Devin Nunes, a popular conversation this week on the left is that he should step down, that it's not possible for him to continue to conduct a fair investigation as he heads up the House Intelligence Committee for looking at those documents in the White House, disclosing the findings to the president before taking it directly to the committee. Should he excuse himself?
Look, Adam Schiff, who's his ranking Democratic member, is fully, totally partisan. This is a partisan fight, particularly in the House. And of course, if I were a Democrat, I'd say he should step down because he's effective. He's smart. He knows what he's doing. He's going to be very effective at this. And if I were Nunes, I would just ignore him and cheerfully just keep chairing.
All right. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, thanks for joining us this morning. Good to see you, sir.
Glad to do it.
All right.